We are down to 15 shows plus our specially selected ones at the end. So let's go back to the randomizer and see what's next. 1. Bubble. Oh goody. Yay. This is the one that had a whole lot of staff behind it that no one had anything good to say about. Let's get it over with. Alright, I made it about 26 minutes into Bubble, which is, I think, 25% of the runtime, about. And I was just completely bored the whole fucking time. None of these characters are interesting. They're quite flat, to be honest. And they seem to fucking hate each other. Like, there's no friendship amongst these people who are apparently living together, I guess, and are part of a team. They all just seem to be snarky and rude towards each other, which is not fun at all. But moreover, this movie doesn't particularly look good. I know for some reason this is technically listed as an ONA on all the sites like Mal and AniList and stuff, but it's 100 minutes, it's 101 minutes, so it's a fucking movie. And if it's gonna be a fucking movie, I'm going to expect movie quality from it. Now, the backgrounds, most of the time, are movie quality, but the animation really isn't. Mostly because of the not great compositing. This is something I've learned recently is, at least a lot of the time, or around 50% or slightly less than 50% of the time, bad compositing, where you can really tell the difference between the different elements in a scene, like the characters versus the environments versus CG models, etc., is because of bad color design, usually. And this movie has some dog shit fucking color design. Look, hyper vibrancy is fine when you want to really accentuate how something looks. If you want to make some pop, you know, like a bubble. If you want something to, then you need to use it. Then you can use it sparingly. But when you make Technicolor vomit your core aesthetic, it looks fucking ugly. This is not a pleasant movie to look at. It's ugly. Even with Takeshi Obata's character designs, most of which aren't even good character designs. His main character is the same. Basically, he did his Bakuman character again, but slightly different, but with slightly different hair. It's like he meshed the Bakuman main character with the Platinum End main character. But somehow this guy is just even more annoying than the Platinum End character. Not that that has anything to do with Obata's character designs, but it's worth pointing out. Also, some of the worst fucking exposition I've seen in a while. Like, we get 14 minutes into the movie, and then a scientist just starts going on an internal monologue ramble to no one about how this world functions. Which I guess is what happens when Gen Urobuchi doesn't give a shit. Because to be fair, that is kind of his brand of not having particularly great exposition sometimes. Fate Zero, I guess, would be a good example of that. The walking in circles scene, which I really like from a cinematic standpoint, but from a narrative exposition giving standpoint, it kind of sucks. But that kind of leads us into probably the biggest disappointment about this movie is that this has like an all-star staff behind it. As I said, it's written by Gen Urobuchi. It's got character designs by Takeshi Obata, who did Death Note, Bakuman Platinum End. You've got Tetsuro Araki directing it. Fucking Attack on Titan guy. And Hiroyuki Sawano is doing the score. So it's got that big bombastic Hiroyuki Sawano sound. But to be honest, I think Hiroyuki Sawano has mostly lost his touch. His 86 soundtracks were good, but this one was not particularly good. I wasn't particularly a fan of his Promare soundtrack. I think he's starting to become just kind of... His sound is just kind of generic now, which sucks. There's a fly buzzing around here. I'm getting fucking distracted. But, yeah, this movie is super fucking boring, despite this huge staff behind it. It really feels like Netflix, because this is a Netflix movie, was like, let's get all of these star cast or star staff people together and just have them make a movie. Doesn't matter what kind of movie. Let's just have them make a movie. And it turned out to be a parkour movie. Now, the parkour sequences are kind of hit and miss. I've only seen 2, really, so far. Well, there were two and a half. The first one was just not impressive at all. Like, the opening race sequence was not cool or interesting. The bad compositing really came out because most of the sets for the parkour segments were CG, and the camera was just super jerky and not fluid at all. In contrast to the second sequence, which is the underwater parkour sequence, basically the part where the main character falls into the water and like gets hit by a bunch of shit and gets dragged around through the water, that one I actually liked. Again, because it had better compositing and less CG. I will give credit where credit is due. I wish the first sequence was like that, but it wasn't. So, I'm not particularly impressed by anything this show has to offer. And movie. I'm not particularly impressed by anything this movie has to offer. And I find the characters mostly infuriating and annoying to watch. So I think we're going to be done. Alright. Let's get rid of Bubble. Don't need that no more. Let's see what's next. 11. 11 is Love After World Domination. Okay, this is a weird rom-com-ish kind of show. Let's give it a go. Alright, I just watched all of Love After World Domination, and I liked that way more than I thought I would. That was a lovely little rom-com / Sentai series. So if you're not familiar with this one, it's basically Super Sentai, but the Red Ranger falls in love with one of the enemy commanders and they date each other in secret. And it's really cute and really funny. I'm surprised at just how many great jokes there were in it. It really meshes the Sentai setting with the rom-com setting pretty well, and the way that those two genres bleed into each other was kind of perfect in a way. Like, it really nailed the forbidden love kind of like dating the background kind of thing. Just the way that I'm just realizing that now is just the way that these two genres mesh together is really good in this series. And I think that's because the main cast is just really likable and fun and adorable. Fudo, our Red Ranger, is a musclehead idiot. And that is actually kind of relevant to the story and the characterization of everyone on the whole. Because A, he's an idiot, but B, he also has no dating experience prior to going out with Desumi, who our Reaper princess. And so he makes mistakes as they are dating, and Desumi gets mad at him for it, and they have like little spats, and eventually they like either talk it out or one of them realizes that they were wrong or something like that, and they eventually like get back to being all lovey-dovey and shit. And that's kind of rare for a rom-com. Like, it's rare enough to actually have a relationship in a rom-com, although I must say that more modern anime tend to be making more of an effort to actually put them in a relationship. But it's even rarer for them to actually have, like, relationship issues that they have to work through in a realistic manner. Like, one of the more obvious ones is Fudo plans out a date for the two of them, but he has no fucking clue what he's doing, so he basically gets date etiquette completely wrong. It's not a huge issue because Desumi just kind of still loves him in the end, and she's like just totally cool with spending time with him, but it is like kind of important that he like consider, like the lesson there was like that he has to consider what the other person has to do and like this, what a date is actually like. And so that was kind of a cute little exchange. And I swear we're going to teach these otaku how to date one fucking dumb rom-com episode at a time. We're going to fucking do it, guys. We're going to do it. But yeah, just aside from them, the whole cast is just super likable and fun, except for the Blue Ranger. I think his name is Hayato, who's basically just a sex-past, suave, cool guy. Didn't like him. I liked it when he got the shit beat out of him, so he was good for comedic effect. But didn't like him in pretty much any other circumstance. But the rest of the cast is just super fun. All the Rangers are super fun. The other Princess series group and everyone in the evil organization. And it's just a lot of really great characterization all around. Like, Desumi kind of has to fight, basically has to, like, work against, like, what her family wants her to do versus what her coworkers want her to do versus what she wants to do and how she wants to spend more time with Fudo as opposed to just burying herself in work. Like, she's finally found something in her life that makes her legitimately happy. And so seeing her actually fight for that was really fun. And God, this show is just really funny and really wholesome and cute. And the final episode was just really like dumb cliche shit after dumb cliche shit all at once, but it was so fun and not high stakes. I mean, there are stakes, but it's not like super deathly serious or anything, so you really just can get invested in like the over-the-topness of it all. And this is definitely an over-the-top show in a lot of ways, in a very Super Sentai kind of way, so very much liked that. Now, the one thing that might stop people from getting invested in this show is the production quality, because there's some issues. Now, on the one hand, I'll start with the good. Any fight scene looks pretty fucking good. There's a lot of really strong impact when someone gets the shit kicked out of them. The choreography's really good. Like, there's this one scene where someone's just bouncing off the walls down a staircase, and just the way that they move just looked really fucking cool. The combat, really cool. Particle effects are really fucking cool. There's almost no CG at all in this show. Now that I think about it, I think just the helicopter for the news crew is CG. I think that's the only CG object in this show. So, very ambitious for them to draw it all like this. And the camera work is pretty ambitious too. They really go for it. Against their better judgment sometimes. Because in terms of actual, like, drawing quality, and just like in terms of like the more toned down stuff where it's just like a still frame of stuff of two characters talking, more often than not it kind of looks like shit.
It is. There are some very not pretty frames in this show when they're supposed to be. Now, granted, there are some shots that are just look really cool or really cute and just pleasant to look at, but there's also a lot that don't, which is not surprising coming from Project Number 9. This studio is not good. They did the Higehiro adaptation last year. They did recently My Sister is Unusual. Don't look that one up. They've done a lot of really bad shows. They did that one Lolly Shogi show from a couple years ago, if anyone remembers that. I think that was them. But this is the first show of theirs that I actually finished, which is kind of surprising to me. I imagined this studio just completely failing forever until the end of time. But the source material for this one was so strong, and admittedly this was the way they tackled the source material was ambitious. So they kind of got me on this side there. And for as vibrant as it is, decent color design actually. Which is kind of weird because it's a Super Sentai show, so it's a Sentai show. Super Sentai is a specific. You get what I mean. So there's a lot of very vibrant colors in this show that often you would think don't mesh well together, but surprisingly, the color design was pretty solid. I will have to look up who did the color design for this series afterwards. Because they deserve some credit. The character designs, for as off-model as they get sometimes, are good character designs. There's some pretty solid editing, although a lot of times the shots drag on for a little too long. But yeah, just for every bad piece of production value, there is an equally good, if not better, piece of production value that makes up for it. So, yeah, really liked this show, would recommend it. I almost dropped it, like, right away because the opening couple shots are so fucking ugly. Like, the opening, when we first get introduced to Fudo and Decimi, like, just hanging out together while everyone else is fighting, some of the shots in that scene look fucking butt ugly. And it almost put me off the show completely, but I'm really glad I stuck with it because I just really liked the characters, and it just fucking the concept is just so fucking great. Really like this show. It's fucking good.
Alright, Love After World Domination is done, and we're going to put it right here. If the production value had been a little bit stronger, it easily could have been an 8, but strong 7 is a good score. Now, we're down to what, 13 shows, plus our 3 at the bottom here. Let's see what we roll next. 1, again, Mobile Suit Gundam Cucuruz Doan Island. Cucuruz, Doan's Island. Yes. Alright. Yeah, let's watch some fucking Gundam.
Alright, I just finished Mobile Suit Gundam Cucuruz Doan's Island, which is a movie that exists for some reason. If you don't know the history of this, so episode 15 of the original Mobile Suit Gundam was called like Doan's Island or something. And for some reason, I don't know all the details behind it. Probably should have looked this up before the video, but apparently either it was not received well or someone on the staff or the production committee just fucking hated the episode or something. It never got released with the official US release of Gundam. If I recall correctly, it was removed from subsequent viewings with the Japanese showings of Gundam in terms of like reruns and DVD releases. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but I do believe that's the case. For some reason, they just decided to erase this episode from Gundam's existence. I don't know why. I thought it was okay. Now, granted, this is me watching Mobile Suit Gundam 79 back in like 2016. So what do I know? I thought the episode didn't particularly stand out from the rest of the series. It was neither better nor worse than the average of episodes, in my opinion. Maybe I missed something, but for some reason, they decided to turn that episode into a feature-length movie directed by... I forgot his name, but it's directed by the original character designer and I think animation director for like the original Gundam series, like 79, Zeta, maybe Double Zeta, I'm not sure. But I believe he was also the chief director for Gundam Origin. Dude's been around a fucking while. So this is a movie that exists. I was fine. It was fine. I'm just trying to understand why. Why? I get, like, it's gotta... They do somehow take a 20 minutes of anime episode and stretch that out to, like, 105 minutes. Somehow they do that. And... admittedly, a lot of it is a lot of, like, story beats that you've seen before in a lot of other media. Like, the plot of the original episode is Amuro somehow ends up on an island that is inhabited by a defecting Zeon soldier named Doan and a group of, I presume, war orphans who he's just raising on that island. So he defected from Zeon and now he's raising these kids on this island. And stuff happens and then Amuro leaves the island. And the movie sort of takes this and turns it into a Amuro, you gotta get good, you gotta put in the work kind of moment. You know, that classic story of like the guy falls on hard times, has to work his way back up from the bottom by learning the very basics of shit again. Kind of takes elements from that general trope, and I think it kind of works for Amuro, because if I recall, this is like when Amuro is still very much in his bratty phase, when he's on White Base. And we do get some, like, flashbacks to earlier moments in the series. Like, we get the moment where Bright smacks him for the first time. We get a general feel for how if you're familiar with Gundam and for some reason you haven't seen this episode, you get a general sense for where in the plot line this is supposed to take place. And it's fine. It's totally fine. I'm struggling to say interesting stuff about this episode, or this movie, because I'm just trying to understand why it exists, other than make more Gundam. Because, I mean, the mech fights were cool, they were flashy and hype, but they were CG mechs, which is unusual for Gundam. Gundam usually does not do CG mechs. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head, besides like the SD Gundam shit, that actually uses like CG mechs most of the time, I think was Unicorn, which I still haven't seen. I just know that it has, since the mech designs are so fucking complicated in that one, that some of it's CG. But for Gundam on the whole, CG mechs are typically not used. So, for a movie of all things to use, for a Gundam movie of all things to use CG mechs, that's odd, in my opinion. That's a bit odd. So, yeah, that was a little disappointing. I mean, to be fair, even when Gundam uses CG, it still looks better than most CG, but Gundam doing 2D mech animation is still vastly superior to all of it, so it is a little bit disappointing to not get the CG mechs. And I also have some issues with the character designs, which is ironic because the director of this movie, and I believe he has also done the character designs for this movie, is the original character designer for all of the characters from the original Gundam. So you would think that he would be able to make this look good, but it kind of doesn't sometimes. There are some cool moments here and there, but the characters do not mesh with the background. I think that's more of a compositing thing, really. The character outlines are very thick for some reason, and so they really clash with the backgrounds a lot. And there were a lot of shots of Amuro in particular that just didn't seem to fit. They just looked a little off. So, now, I guess I'm being a little negative on this movie. Now, I think it's fine overall. I thought I was going to give it like a 7 or something, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this was just a slightly above average film. I think it worked fine. It worked fine. God, I'm struggling to come up with shit to say about this. Oh, I guess there is one benefit to it being a Gundam series, is that it just really goes in on the politics too. Like, it made me look up a fucking random German general from World War II that stopped Hitler from burning down Paris as they were getting forced out of Paris during World War II, which turned into like a running theme in the fucking in the movie. Like, it's the "is Paris burning" quote, and that sort of feeds in throughout the movie in terms of how the Federation and Zeon are going at this particular event that they're trying to do. Zeon's trying to like nuke a bunch of cities, and the Federation kind of calls their bluff, and then stuff happens, and it all gets resolved by the end. So that was interesting. Also, there is a what's the phrase? Fucking harmony, not harmony. The thing that Dazaki did, where it's... Why can't I think of the name of this fucking animation technique? Anyway, it's the thing Dazaki does where it, like, freeze frames on an image, and then, like, it goes real... It has, like, a completely different art style. Postcard memories, that's what it is. It does, like, a postcard memory of Hayato getting headbutted in the ass by a goat. That happens at some point in this movie, and that happens approximately 5 minutes after Amuro steps on someone with his mobile suit. And honestly, I could not think of a better encapsulation of Gundam than that. It is hype, weird, silly, but at the core of it, it has a decent emotional pull to it. So, I would still recommend it despite the weirdness of it, and despite the fact that I'm still not sure it needs to exist. But, yeah, that's the movie.
Alright, Cucuruz, Doan's Island is done, and we're going to put it right here. And we get a strong 6 for that one. Decent film, despite me still trying to figure out why it exists. In any case, we're down to 12 in the random, plus 3 at the bottom. Let's see what our next random number is. It is 6. What is 6? I'm quitting heroing. Nope, No, Google, don't autocorrect that to heroin. I don't know if this is isekai or just general fantasy. Let's give it a go.
Alright, I watched about a little over 2 episodes of I'm Quitting Heroing, and that was not fun. Yeah, this was mostly kind of... No, it wasn't... I was gonna say it's kind of boring, but it's really not. I do like the concept behind it, and it's certainly... The premise certainly was not what I expected. Like, based on the title, I thought it was gonna be more like Banished from the Heroes Party, where a hero quits being a hero and then just fucks off to the middle of nowhere. Was that what Isekai Pharmacy was like too? I didn't watch enough of that to care. But this one instead is the hero defeats the Demon Lord, but then gets rejected by the humans he saved, and so he signs up to help the Demon Lord rebuild her army, which is a cool premise. But they totally fucked up the execution for that, because they just immediately jump from the hero beats the Demon Lord all by himself to suddenly all of the humans hate him now because he's too powerful. Like, there's no, like, build up to that at all. It's just very sudden and does not make a whole lot of sense. Like, he's not exactly a great guy, but he's not, like, malicious or mean-spirited or anything like that. So, even by, like, mob mentality rules, I don't see how there could just be this sudden turn on him immediately after he defeats the Demon Lord by literally every human that he comes across. So, did not buy that at all. It still had potential after that. It's basically just like it's a very weird execution. Actually, it's basically just like reforming company logistics and like just streamlining task management and stuff and delegation of tasks. It's basically like business, like modern business tactics, which is kind of interesting for 1 or 2 episodes. But like after the second episode, I felt like I had gotten the gist of it, and I didn't really feel particularly interested in that anymore, because it's kind of super basic stuff. It's not like these situations are completely insane or over the top. It's just normal business practices. It's just that this demon army is so fucked and so understaffed and so not prepared for actually running a business slash army that they just didn't know how to do this, I guess. So it's just super basic in the end. And also the main character kind of sucks. I don't like him at all. The only upside... Actually, no, I was going to say something nice about him, but then I realized it wasn't true. He's just not fun to follow. He's very haughty and arrogant. In a sense, rightfully so, because he beat literally everyone all by himself and barely broke a sweat doing it. But it doesn't make him a fun character to follow, so yeah, I don't particularly care for him. I was going to stop after the second episode because I felt like I had gotten everything out of the series that I wanted to. But then the third episode was going to focus on the lolly beast girl who has a hard-on for the main character. And that's kind of my brand, so I felt obligated to go into the third episode. And then I turned on the third episode and realized that character kind of sucks. So that was a disappointment too. She is not fun. She is a hyperactive manic nutcase who is constantly trying to dick down the main character. That part I like. Everything else not so much. It's also not a particularly good looking show. It's not bad, but this is one of those shows where they put in the bare minimum aesthetic work for it. It is a totally flat, totally average looking production. Nothing looks broken or poorly animated, but nothing stands out. It is a totally average, totally unassuming production. That's just kind of the show on the whole. And there's no reason to watch any more of it.
Alright. I'm Quitting Heroing is gone. Brings us down to 11. Let's see what we get next. Come on, let's give me something interesting. 7 is Deaimon. No clue what this is. Let's find out.
Alright, I watched just under 2 episodes of Deaimon. I think the subtitle for this one is Recipe for Happiness. It's fine. It's not particularly noteworthy to me in any way. Artwork is pretty solid. It reminds me a bit of Tsukigakure. Kind of looks like that art style. And there's nothing particularly incompetent about it. It's all well produced, very chill vibes throughout, although I don't particularly enjoy the comedy. I don't think the jokes are very funny. But I think, the characters are competently written, but I don't really feel any particular connection to any of them. There's nothing about any of these characters that really, makes me interested in wanting to see more from them. So, this show is competent but not interesting, I guess is the best way to say it. The writing doesn't really hook me that much, which is probably a controversial statement considering that this was written by Reiko Yoshida, big name in the anime screenwriting world. But to be fair, she has written a few duds in the past as well. Like, she's written a ton of stuff, and not all of it's good. And I don't think this one's particularly bad in any way. I just does not interest me at all. The vibe is kind of similar to it's not exactly similar, but it vaguely resembles Usagi Drop to me in a little bit, in some ways. It's got sort of that, rebuilding a or not rebuilding a family, but kind of like a found family kind of vibe. Little middle school girl who's basically abandoned by her parents gets sort of adopted by these people who run a, confectionery, and the prodigal son returns and they ask him to basically be like a father figure for her. I could see it having a decent arc as it goes on, but again, none of the characters particularly interest me in the specifics. There's nothing specific about them that makes them interesting outside of their particular archetypes. And I'm also not a huge fan of the... Well, I will say the son character does have some specifics, but I don't like those specifics. He's whiny in very weird ways and just kind of infuriating to watch. So I will say that's the one thing that I vehemently do not like about... Not vehemently, but I specifically don't like about the show. Everything else is just kind of there. So, not a whole lot else to say about this one. It's probably fine, but I have no interest in it.
Alright, Deaimon comes off the list. And that brings us down to 10 randoms plus 3 shows in the bottom half, which means it's time for Demon Girl Next Door Season 2. I am so hyped for this. Let's fucking go.
Alright, I just finished all of the Demon Girl Next Door Season 2. Man, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoy the series. If you're not familiar, I'm very partial to this series. I haven't given it a particularly high rating. I think I gave the first season a strong 7. But there's a lot in that first season that I very acutely identified with. You can check out my analysis video on the main channel for that. I did it during Season 2 of 12 Days of Anime a couple years ago. So I was extremely excited for Season 2 of this, and it certainly did not disappoint. I would say there's a very mild change in there's only one negative change, I would say, in terms of the change from the first season to the second season, and that is there's a lot less until the last couple episodes. There are much fewer moments of just. See, I don't even know if that's really right. I was gonna say there are a lot fewer moments of truly negative down moments for Shamiko and the other characters and stuff. Well, for Shamiko specifically, I would say that. But honestly, I don't even know if I could consider that a negative at this point, because we do get a lot of those moments for other characters too. We get it with Momo during the first half of the series a little bit, and definitely with Mikan during the last 2 episodes. I think that's when it really hit hard with the emotional stuff in it. And it really shined in those last few moments. But aside from that, I think Season 2 is a step up in pretty much every regard, especially visually. I mean, it's still not an amazing looking series, but I will say there's not any real jank moments in Season 2 as far as I could see. Season 1 had some rough moments in it, despite its not being a very ambitious show. But Season 2 seems to have been updated to just generally competent. Not spectacular to any degree, but is still it is decent to look at now. And the last episode actually had some Sakuga, surprisingly. There was a very mini action sequence in it that looked really cool. Had some cool choreography, some cool particle effects and such. So that kind of came as a surprise. But yeah, step up in that regard. I was also very surprised that this one, a lot of steps up in terms of the world building for this one. It does a lot of explaining as to how the different, how magical girls work, how Shamiko's demon powers work, how familiars work. Just a lot of really interesting explanations as to how everything in this world functions. We got the very bare bones of it in Season 1, and that's kind of all that Season 1 needed, because Season 1 was much more focused on just the comedy aspects and the general vibe between the characters. And those are still very much present in Season 2. It's just that Season 2 is adding these really cool world-building elements to make this a more unique, almost semi-parodical magical girl series in a certain way. It is there are definitely some areas where it is taking the piss out of magical girls, but it also is not. It's not mocking magical girl series by any stretch. It still likes its genre. It's just going about it in a very comedic way a lot of the time. And also in a very kind of metatextual kind of way. So, really appreciated that. And then all the character relationships are just getting more interesting and just better. I love that it's the first... Because, it picks up right where the Season 1 left off, where Shamiko challenges Momo to a duel, but Momo misinterprets that as her asking her out on a date, which was kind of funny. Ship that hard. I really hope this gets another season, just so we can see if they actually do go into that more. On top of the fact that they introduced so many more interesting characters in this season, like Ugalu at the very end has a lot of potential for being a really interesting character down the line. Liko and her boss that Shamiko works with, like in the first half of the series, just really hilarious and vibrant characters that I just loved seeing on screen, and added a lot to how Shamiko is progressing as a character. That's probably one of the coolest things about this season is like we actually kind of get to a point where Shamiko is semi-competent at being a demon girl. She still needs a lot of help from everyone around her, but I think that was kind of always going to be the case, is she's drawing everyone in to her and getting them on her side just by being her and being friends with them and just have her through her natural personality. And I think that's really that made this season end on such a really strong note of, because in the first season what really endeared me to Shamiko is the fact that she just failed constantly over and over and over again, but she also just kept getting back up and allowing people to help her try and be better and get better at the things that she's trying to do. And so having her actually succeed in the plan that she makes at the very end was really cool. And it's also further reflected in the fact that like her big savior moment here is that she saves another character who has also been constantly failing at the thing that she's been trying to do. Like Ugalu, who is the familiar that protects Mikan, has basically just been causing her undue stress and problems for her entire life because she was summoned incorrectly. And so Shamiko saves Ugalu and allows her to like start to make things right with Mikan. So that was just really cool to see. We finally got some we finally got the explanation for Sakura, who's Momo's older sister, and how she plays into this whole thing. Like, turns out that Sakura is basically, her core is basically inside Shamiko, basically like keeping her stable and not dying, like keeping her healthy. So that was kind of cool. And just she's a very fascinating, very free-spirited character that I'm hoping, if we get another season of this, I hope we'll get to see more of. I think this is a solid place to wrap up. I mean, obviously there's still way more that can be explored. There's so many unanswered questions with the series, but if we don't get another season, I won't be disappointed, but I would really like another season of this because this show is just so incredibly endearing and wonderful, and I love it. It's just good. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this. Parting thoughts, yeah, it's just the wholesomeness of it, despite the kind of dark comedy within it, really pulls it all together. And yeah, the comedy is still really fucking good for this season. Laughed my ass off quite a few times, especially with some of the side characters. Like, I think her name's Ogura, the mad scientist lady. Really liked her a lot more this season. Yeah, is a good show. Would definitely recommend it. So let's go to the list and see where I rank it.
Alright. Demon Girl Next Door Season 2 is complete. And I'm still not sure exactly where. You know what? Fuck it. We're going to put it up there. We're going to put it in the top 5 for this year so far. And it gets a light 8. Really damn fun time.